But people were like, should I quit my job? My business doesn't work and I quit my job. I'm going to be on the street begging for food. That's tunnel vision. But my buddy, he had extreme tunnel vision. He was not very useful in getting out of that situation. But if you've mastered that internal game, you can actually learn what is it that we're actually talking about? What are we actually upset about? And you can start navigating an argument. It's like, yeah, but if it doesn't work out, then I don't have this safe job. He's like, dude, I bet you if your business did fail and you need to get a job, you probably get paid more at the new thing. And the guy was like, didn't think of that.
I said, hold on. Before you commit that to memory, do we need to clarify what was said before we move forward?
Welcome to the Full Stack Podcast. I'm Mike Bledsoe. The world is changing faster than ever. The systems are collapsing, the rules are being rewritten, and certainty is disappearing. The question isn't how do we survive it? It's who do we become through it? This is your field guide for living the full stack life. Integrated, adaptive, and sovereign by design. Join the movement and gain free access to the Full Stack School community at bledsoe.life. This isn't the end of an era. It's the rise of a new kind of individual. You're not alone. You're early. Stay stacked. If this episode resonates, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend.
Right around the corner, man. Brandon Powell is the man. He's taught me so much, not just the Muay Thai aspect of things, but the breathwork, cold plunge. It's dope.
The guy's a genius. Amazing musician. Great storyteller. His drumming during breathwork, like his breathwork is shamanic, and I've done a lot of breathwork with a lot of different people, and I got into a session with him, and I go, "Oh, you're like top notch.
Mm-hmm.
You're incredible." Yeah.
The house we rented for our breathwork, it was like an Airbnb on the lake, and we were in the living room right by the kitchen. And halfway through, or like 3/4 through, we heard some like glasses rattling, like the bass from the music, because you know how Brandon does the music and the drums.
Yeah.
The bass was rattling the glasses. It was maybe like an hour or two later. We're just hanging out, cleaning up, and the glasses started to like 3 or 4 of the glasses broke from the bass from the breath work. It was insane.
Yeah.
So
wild.
Yeah.
If anyone out there gets a chance to do breathwork with Brandon Powell, do anything with the man. I mean, the guy's amazing at jiu-jitsu. I didn't know he was teaching Muay Thai, but it makes sense. I mean, he's a savant in many different areas.
Yeah, and he grew up with Mark England, who I've had on my podcast, and he was the one that introduced me to the term amygdala hijacking. You familiar?
Yeah, those two guys met in on the short bus, basically. They were both in special classes together. Ask him about that. Ask him about being in special classes with Mark England.
Oh man, I'd say they made it pretty far though. Short bus took them a long way.
Dude, those guys are probably the smartest people in their class, or not in the special class, but probably out of their school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes to show you, like, the people running the schools may not be the best at picking out the talent.
Mm-hmm. That's some truth right there. But Mark was the one who opened up my eyes to the term amygdala hijacking, which I'm sure you're familiar with amygdala hijacking, what it is.
Well, I worked with Mark England for years. Before Enlifted, like, we were hanging out. We did workshops together. I joined them with Procabulary. We turned it into Enlifted. I hung out with him and his business partner, Adam Chin, a lot. I mean, we rented. I lived with Mark England. He was my roommate for a while. We also rented houses in order to build products. We rented out, what's that? The Godfather of Fitness, Jack LaLanne. We rented Jack LaLanne's house in Palm Springs to put together the content for the Enlifted program. So yeah, I've had a lot of time with him, and I've spent a decent amount of time with Brandon Powell. So I had him come out and do breath work for one of my events in 2019. I've done a lot of cold therapy stuff with him, breath work. So yeah, those guys are solid. Yeah. These two guys from the sticks in Virginia doing cool stuff.
Making waves. I have to say, I think Brandon Powell, for my research, he's been revered as the top Wim Hof breath instructor on the East Coast. Like,
Yeah. And I could be wrong because I wasn't there, but from what I understand, he's the guy that really brought the musical component
Hmm.
to the Wim Hof community. I think there wasn't a lot of music going on, and then
Hmm.
he shows up, and next thing we're now doing music too. So,
Yeah. What's your most potent memory? Whether it's Mark England or Brandon Powell of those days, what's the most potent that sticks out right now?
well, the most potent memory is Brandon Powell meeting at the farm, Mark England's farm in Virginia, and there was our first meeting. Mark said, "You got to meet this guy." He comes over and he sets up in the living room with a drum, and I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I've done a lot of breath work, like a lot." And I'm like, "All right, whatever." And he takes me in. I go, "Whoa, whoa!" Like private session with Brandon Powell, blown away. And then we got ice in a tub in the backyard. We go back there, and then he takes me into more breath work while in the ice. And I won't say what we did because he asked me not to. But we did some techniques that he doesn't suggest anybody do unless they're with a real pro in the ice. And yeah, it was really, that was probably the most memorable with Brandon Powell. And Mark England and I just, we hung out so much. We, it's hard to pick out one particular memory, but yeah, we've like lived in the same house together in many different parts of the United States, like Virginia, California, um, meeting Austin, Texas, like months and months together with that guy. Yeah, both those guys are incredible.
It's no surprise that the most potent memory was a significant experience with you because in today's report, I had a couple of studies, and the first one talked about memory systems 101, cognitive neuroscience and the study of memory. And pretty much the study found that your brain stores facts and events differently from skills and habits. Focus and repetition wire long term change, where you won't brute force memory by cramming and studying last minute, really what the schooling systems taught us, but more of an emotional connection to memory. So those are kind of the initial findings of the studies. And it makes sense that when we smell something, it reminds us of our childhood. The nostalgia of things can pull different memories on. So when you look at this study, it's almost like it's the experiences, not just the event, not just what we read, that helps solidify the things that we remember down the line. Does that track?
Yeah, I mean, there's always an emotional component. I've done a lot of coaching with people. I've done things around like emotional trauma, mindset, things like this. And one of the things that I found is just that um, the memories that really stick are the ones that have a heavy emotional component to them. And so, and even like subconscious memories that we are not aware of, that are actually running the show. And so the subconscious mind running most of our lives, the majority of our memories aren't memories that we're going to recall by thinking about them. We recall them by feeling something. That's why something like a sense of smell, like I'm feeling something, I'm smelling something, and now that stirs up a memory. I wasn't recalling that by thinking about it. Most of people's recall, or I've coached so many people who we go back to they end up recalling a memory they haven't been aware of in 20, 30 years, is because we're not trying to think about what happened. We're feeling into our bodies. And as we're going into the depth of feeling, which had been ignored for a while, that's when this old memory may emerge. It could be a really joyful memory, but it could also be a really traumatic memory, something that left an imprint, that changed how they behave unconsciously. And so usually, like, that's why I'm familiar with it, is because I'm very interested in how do we change people's behavior based on uh, their unconscious behavior patterns. Well, we have to get down to why it was initiated in the first place. And uh, I don't necessarily think that's absolutely true, as we have to get down to the root moment, but we have to really become acquainted with that feeling and know it front to back. And a byproduct is having the memory. I don't think the memory is the thing that we actually have to be working with. It's just something that tends to emerge during a process of getting into the feeling body.
Yeah. I feel like when we better understand how memories are stored and how we can really record these things, it helps us in real time acquire new knowledge, acquire new teachings.
Did that research, that paper, I didn't read the whole thing. Did that paper make any claims around where memory is stored? Because I think that scientists have, from my understanding, scientists have been trying to figure out where in the brain memories are
Hmm.
stored, and they really haven't been able to settle on that.
It did not clarify, and that's actually it's funny because that's one of the questions I was going to have and discuss with you in terms of where memory is stored. And it does pose that question: is like where is memory stored? It emerged at the beginning of the 19th century was when they first really started asking this as a large question to a degree. They're looking into the, I guess, better known as the phrenology to describe the approach and how they're breaking it down, but it doesn't go into details of where it in fact is stored.
Yeah, my understanding from talking to a lot of people smarter than me is that they have not figured out where the memories are stored, and actually, there's a lot of evidence to point that it's not really stored in the brain. A lot of people will refer to the brain as something that's more like an antenna than a storage device. There's also some evidence that point in the direction. I'm very careful with my words about. You'll notice we were talking about the scientific method a bit before here. Anytime anyone says something has been proven, my red flag goes up. Um, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that memories may even be stored in the fascia of the body, which is not directly, it's not the nervous system even. And so I read into the research a little bit. It was talking about, oh, memories aren't stored in it. First it was like we thought they were stored in a cell. They're not stored in a cell. Well, maybe it's how the cells are interacting with each other. Oh, it's not just in the brain, it's in the nervous system. And I go, okay, well, your intellect, which we just recorded a show that we're gonna have to re-record because we had technical issues. But I was talking about 95% of the intelligence is stored in the body, and even that may be a big claim. But what I'm getting at is it's not in the brain. It's in it's in the body or even outside of the body. There's some evidence to suggest, you have an energetic field that is greater than your own body, and your body is interact. It's kind of like if someone walks up behind you, you don't hear anything, but you kind of got a sense that they're there. That's what the energetic bodies are like sensing each other in that way. And so, um, the yeah, where are the memories stored? We don't actually know. But I do know that if we impact the fascia, if I find someone has had something going on with their fascia for a long time, and there are many different ways of releasing that fascia, a lot of times memories do come up. And so, one way to think about it is I experience, and going back to the emotional thing, I experience an emotion. And and our we're built biologically. We want to think about this from like an evolutionary psychology perspective is I need to remember the bad things. I need to remember the things that almost killed me or the things that were traumatic so I don't repeat that again so I can maintain safety. And so uh the the body will actually contract. So when you're afraid, people tend to contract and like pull their limbs in, and there's a contraction. And if there is a fear, so someone gets in a car accident, and I remember this happened for me years ago. I had a truck hit me on the left side of my car. I hit my head, dinged my head a little bit, not too bad. But for years afterwards, pulling into the left lane, changing lanes, I would do like a triple check. And because that's what happened, I was pulling into the left lane and a truck jumped out of the far lane and it plowed into me. And so now anytime I'm in any scenario that feels anything like that moment, I would like triple check, triple check, triple check, and then ease over really slowly. And I would watch myself do it and I go, dude, like chill out, you're safe, you're fine. But it took some time and probably some body work, releasing some of the tension. But if you experience a moment where there's a huge contraction, like that truck hit me, it was an F-550. It was a big utility truck. I was in a Jetta. I was in like a sedan. It crushed us. And so it hits, and then there's this unconscious contraction to try to get away, right? And it even happens in the ocular system. Is like, if you ever suffered a concussion, your eyes won't want to go in the direction in which you suffered the concussion. The nervous system is trying to protect you. It doesn't know time. It doesn't know time has passed, and that you're safe now. And so that big contraction can create a stuckness, and the energy moving through your body now has a constriction, and now you're limiting your intelligence because your body is limited. The other way it can happen, aside from like a big traumatic moment, like a car accident, it could be a car accident, or you could be like, something happened between your parents when you were a kid that you witnessed, and that's another thing. Something like that is also available. I've worked with a lot of people who've had sexual trauma, and they have physical things going on in their bodies, and we release those physical things in their bodies, and then the memories come up, and then we get to move through them safely. And so the other way is like if you're exposed to some type of energy over and over and over again, like there was that math teacher I really didn't like, and so every time I walked in the classroom, I got tight, I got tense, my shoulders crept forward, and now I'm like needing to protect myself over and over and over again. And then now I have a posture problem that is associated with math. I don't like math. I also have a pain in my neck, so on and so forth. So these are like the two different ways in which like the memory of something is interacting with the physical body, which then restricts energy flow, which restricts your intelligence.
Yeah, or I'm sure you're familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score, where all these
Oh yeah.
different ailments and the posture and the tightness that we hold from the different experiences that we had. I was at a talk with the author of the book Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss. Have you ever heard of the 464 principle that he
No.
presented? He presented 464 principle, and it was to drive his point home of orienting your questions towards no. But what stuck out to me, he said, when you're trying something new, it takes at least 4 iterations for your gut feeling to see if it works or not. Like after 4 times, you're like,
Uh-huh.
okay, this works or doesn't. And then 64 iterations before it becomes like second nature. So he called it like the
Interesting.
464 approach. He's like, you got to do it a few times, 4 times before you're like, all right, this is working, or nah, I don't want to do it. And then after that, you need to keep doing it until it becomes second nature. And to your point, again, it's more of the repetition, the movement, the habit. It's the doing that solidifies it and really downloads that into what we've talked about before, the subconscious, where you see someone who's done something for years and years on end, maybe dribbling a basketball, and now they could dribble a basketball while talking, chewing gum, doing everything else because it's just second nature. It's a
Right.
programmed in their subconscious mind. And to your point, where is that stored? Is it stored in the brain, or is it stored in the body in the behavior of doing it over and over again?
Yeah. We pulled this up. We got into like a memory
I know.
conversation. What was there? What was the study saying that we wanted to dig into?
Well, that was it. It was it was pretty much facts and events differently from skills and habits, right? A lot of us are trained to cramming this information. Let me pull an all nighter and study all this stuff and the flashcards, right? You have the definition on the back. You see the word. Okay, you remember all these flashcards. You think you have it. That's not necessarily um, submitting that to your subconscious memory. That's just
Yeah.
drilling it.
This reminds me of I'm gonna yeah this I'm gonna tell you how I think about how to learn things quickly, whether it be to memorize information or to for a skill. And they're slightly different, but I remember I was in jujitsu class in my 20s, and I'm sitting on the mat next to my instructor, and we're watching people roll, and he goes, "You know why that guy is learning so fast? Watch." And we're just watching him. And he would get tapped out, and then he would laugh, and then he would get right back into it like he was playing. He goes, "That guy is going to learn really fast." And sure enough, he did. He was learning really fast. He got his blue belt really fast. He got his purple belt really fast. And because he was always playing and having a good time. And then there was on the same mat the same day, there was a guy, every time he got tapped out, he'd slam his hand down on the mat and be like, swearing and everything. And he's like, that guy is not going to learn very fast at all. He's going to be a slow learner. So, the fastest way to learn any skill is to be playing. So that's how kids learn. The moment you pull play out of the equation, skill acquisition becomes very challenging. You're no longer playing. And so some environments, they're going to make it's a more playful environment. You're going to learn faster. But also the individual, how were they raised? Were they raised with parents who were like telling them like you got to like grind them into the ground with like you got to learn this and this is not fun? Or were they raised in a place where they could have fun? So we were in the same environment. The choice to be playful or not was on the individual. And so two different people walking into the same class, doing the same things, having a totally different experience. So one is with skill acquisition is you got to have fun. If you're having fun, you're going to speed up how fast you learn that. And then similarly with what I find with knowledge is really following your curiosity. If you really are interested in the topic and you have I want to learn this because I want to be able to do this other thing, and I know that I want to be able to do this thing because of XYZ, and I have a purpose aligned with it. So easy. I remember I got out of the Navy and I went to business school because I thought business could be good for everything. I wasn't necessarily I wasn't really interested in business at all, but I didn't know what I wanted to study. And so I went into business school, and I remember taking the accounting class. And anyone who's studied accounting at all, it's addition and subtraction. It's not complicated. It's not physics, right? So I end up withdrawing. This is the only class I ever withdrew from college ever because I thought it was gonna like really jack up my GPA. I was not going to do well there, and I ended up pulling out of the class. And then that's when I discovered exercise and sports science. Fast forward a year or two later, I'm in the exercise science program, which I loved. I like ruined the curve in like physiology class because I would just sit in the front of the class, and me and the instructor would go back and forth on how hormones are working in the body because I was so fascinated with it. Like I was like a genius in that space. And I took biomechanics and physics, and I saw the importance of those things, and those were really advanced mathematics that I was learning, and I learned it pretty well. Now I in my childhood I had a little trouble with mathematics, so it was like I had to overcome it a bit still, but I was able to get a B in physics 1 and 2 when I was failing accounting. Like the level of math involved in both these things are very different, much more advanced for physics. I'm not saying I know advanced mathematics, but like compared to accounting is so you got to be interested, and you've got to know why you're learning something. And I think that most people went to school and we had to learn a lot of stuff that we didn't actually care to learn. And so then we think we don't even like reading. Like for a long time, I didn't think I liked to read. And then I found, oh, if I just read the things I'm interested in, I actually can read a lot, and I enjoy reading. I ended up accumulating a ton of knowledge. I know a lot of things because I just read what I'm interested in. You ask me about something I'm not interested in, I go, I don't know. Why should I know anything about that? So I think that being playful, having a purpose, and bringing like joy to it opens up the entire system to be able to absorb that information. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's my take on like, learning memory, all that stuff.
I had a really similar experience, and it almost parallels. I wasn't always a great student. As a matter of fact, I used to hide the fact that I had a 1.9 GPA my freshman year of college. And I built computers in high school. So I was like, I was a gamer. I was like, oh yeah, let's do computer engineering. Got into computer engineering,
Yeah.
but I went to a different school because my parents offered me a car if I stayed at an in-state school. So
Uh,
18-year-old Ted was like, computer science, computer engineering, it's the same thing. Spoiler alert, it's not the same thing at all. But the first year, I got a 1.9 GPA and I'm about to fail out of college. And I don't know if I've told this story before, but I'm on vacation with my buddies. Maybe some alcohol was involved, and I see a bird dive into the ocean. And I start nerding out about the tide. And I'm like, oh, you can see the sand, how small the beach is, it's high tide and everything. And my buddies are looking at me like, dude, how do you know this stuff? And I was like, man, I've always been good at earth science. And my friend proceeds to tell me, he's like, we have a great meteorology program. And like the most casual thing
uh,
ever, I take a sip of my drink. I go, I think I'm going to do that.
ah,
And that's the day I decided to become a meteorologist, right? And here we are 20 something years later, almost 20 years later, and I'm a meteorologist full time. But that led me into signing up for classes. And just like you, I was not, again, not a strong student, but I had to take physics one, physics two. I had to take calculus, had to take chemistry. I had to take all these classes before I could even get into thermodynamics of the atmosphere. But it
right.
fascinated me. And I went from a 1.9 GPA to never getting below a 3.0 for the rest of my college career because I'm studying and I'm learning things. Like when we got to class my senior year and it was like a simulation of looking at weather models and we're in a simulated truck and we're chasing a storm and we land right underneath a tornado. I mean, that's fun in a simulation. I wouldn't want to do it in life, but like you tap into knowledge that you didn't know
Yeah.
you had. You start putting things together because there is that value piece to it. We talked about it before in the other podcast. Is when you attach the values to the behavior becomes easy, and it's just second nature at that point.
Mm,
So,
mhm.
um, I think that transitions well. Unless you had more to unpack on that
Well,
memory.
one thing I'll also mention is like I remember going into the exercise science program and my parents were like, "What are you gonna do? Be a gym teacher? Like, what do you do with that degree?" And I go, "I don't know, you know." And at the time, I go, "I just enjoy studying it. I like training people. I like fitness, um, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Maybe I'll just get my master's and then get my PhD, and I'll just keep studying because I enjoy studying it. So maybe, you can get a PhD and like you can just study for the rest of your life. That's an option if you really like something. And so that was where my head was at, which led to a CrossFit gym, which then I had to circle back and go, oh, I'm a business owner. I got to learn about business. And I had this bad taste in my mouth from business school. And so but then I had to learn business stuff. And then fast forward to say a decade later, I'm then teaching business to people because I ended up loving the topic when I had it applied to something else that I loved. Oh, I want to build a business where I want to build a business where I impact thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people for their health and fitness. I want to do that. And I have to be a good businessman to do it. All of a sudden, you know what became fun? Business. It became fun and play. And of course, I didn't have to, I learned all that on the fly and I hired mentors and I went to seminars and I read books and, I got there, you know, my education was put together by me over the years. So, you know, just because, I think the lesson in that is if you follow your passion, you may be surprised that we end up circling back on that maybe you dismissed initially. You have to have context matters and the purpose of it matters.
The fact was, it's not that you didn't like business school; you didn't have the application of it. There was nothing you were applying to it that gave you the value you were looking for.
Yeah, all I know is that I walked into accounting and he goes, "These are credits and these are debits," and I go, what the hell is a credit and what's a debit and why are we here? You know, like a good instructor would have spent 2 weeks giving us context on why this is important before getting into the math of accounting. This is an instructor that like prided himself on people failing his class, which is really insane. But anyways, yeah, not all instructors are great. That was somebody who was not working in their passion. Because if they're passionate about teaching, they'd be a good teacher. But he wasn't. He was collecting a paycheck.
There are a lot of people who end up in prescribed roles and prescribed areas that kind of thwarts the experience. But then on the opposite side, and this is the side I want to talk about, you ever see somebody who's so good at their job makes you want to do it?
I mean, that happens all the time. It happens all the time. I was like, I want to do that. Like, I have to get real with myself. Like, dude, you do know that you have a limited amount of time on this planet. You can't be awesome at everything. Okay, choose the things I want to put my attention on. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
This next one is in business strategy and the environment, and it talks about sustainability management, research insights from social cognitive neuroscience. Now, the abstract pretty much talks about research in the field of social cognitive neuroscience is advancing rapidly, accelerating by technological innovation and brain imaging. Now, the research produces novel insights as to how humans process information, make decisions, and behave in response to the growing imperatives of sustainability management, pretty much responding to the outside world and how we make decisions. Clearly, we don't make the best decisions when we're all jacked up and we're stressed out, right? Talk about the best structure in which we can make decisions. The famous respond, don't react discussion.
Yeah, some people I think they thrive in certain environments because their reactions are actually on point. And so yeah, there's certain people who are some of the best at what they do. Um and I don't think it's because they downregulated their system and they learned how to like they got to this enlightened state and they were able to choose this thing and they got really good at it. Is some people are just really good at reacting appropriately. An example of this would be like in the military. It's like you have so many things drilled into you, and depending on what level you're operating at, there are decisions that need to be made, and down regulation and learning how to do that is a part of it. But there's a lot of if this then that, and so if you're in an organization where there's a plan for 1,000 different, there's 1,000 different contingency plans based on all these different scenarios, then you just are able to switch from one to the other. So one is you can train reactions based on a lot of different potential threats coming in, as an example. But um, the the we're living in a world that's so complex at this point, and so this is where reactions used to be enough. Like if you just trained the reaction over and over and over again, if this happens, then do this. But the world has become so complex that we're getting hit with so much different data at all times. Most people's reactions are poor at this point, and so learning how to master your breath is really at the core of being able to stay away from what's called tunnel vision. And some people have experienced tunnel vision for real. Like, have you ever had an experience where there was a physical threat where you thought you might lose your life?
Yeah, emergency landing on a plane.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you experience tunnel vision? Did you watch, like, basically there were some things you were acutely aware of and other things you weren't aware of at all?
Yeah, we were going from 30,000 feet to the ground in like maybe 10 minutes, and it was pretty quick. And I remember my dumbass was looking out the window trying to spot where land is, identify the exits, and I'm trying to get my wife's attention. And I remember just like doing like the eyes, like, babe, lock on me, because I'm for some reason, like, if we survive the impact, I want to know where to swim. So that's just what I
Uh-huh.
remember honing in on at the moment.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you thought that was the important piece of information.
Yeah.
That was for some reason your system said this is what's important and everything else doesn't matter. This
Yeah.
is what I'm gonna be. I bet she remembers it differently.
Oh,
I,
100%.
this, she noticed something else. Maybe she noticed what the announcements were or whatever, right? Um,
She noticed the there was a lady, there were two women about 2 or 3 rows in front of us, and she noticed that they were holding hands and praying. And that's like when we got out, she was like, I just other people were grabbing each other praying. I thought it was it. Like she noticed the other people. I was just focused on trying to get out.
yeah, yeah, there you go. I mean, that's probably like quintessential how men respond and women respond. It's not always like absolute, but you know, that's kind of like a stereotypical thing. Um yeah, I mean, I remember I was in a situation once where somebody somebody came to kill me and my buddy, and yeah, and my buddy, I I had been. It wasn't the first time I thought I was going to die, so I had become accustomed to it a little bit, and so I was like controlling my breathing and all that during the scenario. And then when everything ended up, I have the entire story written in detail. It will be shared at some point. I'll post it as a blog article, and then we can discuss it. But my buddy, one of the things, all he could remember was the gun. When we talked to the police, he could describe the gun in extreme detail, and he was really freaking out. Like he had extreme tunnel vision. Uh, he was not very useful in getting out of that situation. I was useful in getting out of the situation. I was controlling my breathing. I had been in situations where I thought I was going to lose my life before, and I had that. I had some of that trained, and so uh, it was it was just like when you have tunnel vision, the only thing he could make decisions around was that gun. He just wanted to get as far away from that gun as possible. He wasn't able to see, there's a door here, there's a window here, there's a roof here, there's a tree here that we can escape out of or whatever, right? And so um he wasn't in any kind of dialogue with the perpetrator, and I was in some type of dialogue with the perpetrator. It wasn't calm, but it was more than what he had going on, right? And so there's there's this thing, this tunnel vision that happens when we get put under stress, and that's a I bring up that as an example is because anyone who's ever thought they were going to lose their life could probably go, yeah, I fucking experienced tunnel vision. Like I remember the first time I was doing like close quarters battle in the military, like where you're learning to clear rooms and you're using simunitions and stuff. It feels very real in some ways, and it took me a while to stop having tunnel vision. But we experience tunnel vision every day in our lives. When something stressful happens, we may not zero in on a single thing and then everything disappears because it's not that traumatic of an event, but it's enough to narrow the field, and then all of a sudden we're out of touch with reality. The amount Our reality shrinks to a very small set of decisions I'm able to make. So people will say like I love watching like a Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary V's he's great in a lot of ways, but people are like, should I quit my job? And he's like, you should totally quit your job right now. You've got something that's going to win. They're like, but I'm afraid that. And the difference between Gary and the person is Gary can see the whole field. He can see all the options that are available. He can see if this doesn't work, then you can do this, this, and this. The person who's being coached by Gary in the moment can only see like, if my business doesn't work and I quit my job, I'm going to be on the street begging for food. Like that's tunnel vision. That's an example of tunnel vision. They're like, oh, this is going to be the outcome. That's the vision they see in their head. And so tunnel vision doesn't always mean that you visually everything closes down, but mentally your options start to decrease. And it's a survival mechanism. It's like, okay, how do I survive from point A to point B, from today till tomorrow? And so most people are like living paycheck to paycheck, right? Well, those people, their tunnel vision, there's tunnel vision of space and there's tunnel vision of time. And so they can only see to the next week because check comes on Friday. They're only making decisions based on what's happening in the next week. They can't make investments that are going to take 10 years to be fruitful. And so there's time and then there's space. And then there's also like the conceptual space of, well, if I quit my job, then I remember Gary was coaching somebody on a podcast recently, and the guy was like, well, should I quit my job? And he described the business he had started on the side, and he was like, dude, your business is crushing. He's like, yeah, but if it doesn't work out, then I don't have this safe job. He's like, and the guy was like a marketer for a big company, like an executive or something like that. And he's like, dude, I bet you if your business did fail and you need to get a job, you probably get paid more at the new thing. And the guy was like, huh, didn't think of that. Why didn't he think of that? He had tunnel vision because the fear, there was a threat. The threat was, I'm not going to have that paycheck anymore. And so that fear came in, and then the amount of options that he saw that was available to him, if that didn't work, he couldn't even consider it. If it doesn't work, I'm ruined. I'll be embarrassed. I'll be like socially, I'll be an outcast. I might have to borrow money. I might have to whatever. And it's like, no, you just get another job. No big deal.
I hear it's like we don't rise to the level of the challenges. We fall to the level of our preparation. We go right to that base animalistic reactions, and that tunnel vision just limits our ability to really see the playing field. We're so focused on the trees, we can't see the forest. And even when someone's showing us the forest, we're like, no, I just see the trees because we can't really even get our way out of that.
Yeah. So there's two things I love this conversation. So falling to the level of your training, there's two ways to approach this. This way we learned in the military, which was you're going to fall to the level of your training. If we put enough repetition where, every time you experience a jam in your pistol, boom, boom, you automatically, right? No matter what's happening in your nervous system, your system could be totally. I'm experiencing like major tunnel vision. Boom, my body is still going to make that movement. I'm still going to do that thing. I'm still hearing certain commands, very specific types of commands. I'm still able to give certain type of commands. I can still move. But so that's one level of training. But then there's the other level of training, which is what's happening with your inner game. So that's the outer game training. So you're going to fall to the level of your training there. If your inner game falls apart, the outer game, you're going to maintain some level. But the other, you're going to fall to the level of your training is if I've trained myself to be at ease and peace in the midst of chaos. Like if I can find my center when everything is flowing around me. Now I don't necessarily fall to the level of that external training. I'm falling to the level of my internal training. So there's external and internal happening here. And so if you can master what's happening internally, then you're likely going to be somebody who can perform really well under like you're not only going to be limited by what your external training is, you're going to be expanded in that space. And so if day after day after day I've mastered my internal state, my ability to learn things happens faster, my ability to something comes in that other people in the room are going, oh my God, I can't believe, that deal fell through and we put all of our eggs in that basket and then the cash flow is stopping. What are we going to do? But I'm in my internal state. I'm like really calm. I'm like, oh, I see that we have a dozen other options here that we can do. Like there's this other thing over here. We can liquidate this. We can make a move there. We can talk to this person. And so, where my attention has been is how do we master the internal state so that I don't have to only go to that external training. Do I still do that external training? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'm having fun.
Yeah.
But I'm not preparing for a worst case scenario. I'm only doing things that I enjoy doing. And then I also have trained that internal game. And so now I'm in a much better position than most people are going to be in any situation that shows up.
Yeah. Better to have both because that external training, you have the the muscle memory in the body, and then the internal training allows you to absorb knowledge in real time, right? Like when when it's down, just like you played with your buddy, focused on the gun, but you're able to have some dialogue. You're able to spot some exit. Situational awareness is like, where are we going to go? Where are we going to escape this in this initial threat?
Another example that might be pertinent to people is maybe you end up with this, in the same type of argument with your wife or your
Yeah,
husband or partner or whatever, right? It's like I end up in the same thing, and I tend to respond the same way. She responds the same way, and we kind of like every fight ends the same. But if you've mastered that internal game, you can actually learn what is it that we're actually talking about? What are we actually upset about? And you can start navigating an argument that used to be like, yeah, we just end up in the same argument over and over again. Like I don't end up in the same argument over and over again, but I did in the past. It's like, okay, what's actually happening here? And that's because I have the internal state. I can learn about what's happening while inside the argument. Whereas before it was like, no, I'm going red. I have tunnel vision. She just needs to shut up. you know, like I mean, I think everybody's had that experience. Like you get an argument and that person just needs to stop, or I'm gonna rip their head off. Like that's what's happened. Not actually gonna do that, but that's kind of where things can end up. And then you go, oh, if I can learn in the moment, if I can be calm in the moment, I can learn what this argument's really about. Then we can squash it for real and leave it behind us.
yeah, and everybody owes you a commission, bro, because you just saved so many relationships with that. Because it's no, it's so true of being able to, like the best things would be like, so what I'm hearing is right, because usually the words are just a hint to what the real problem is, and being in the moment, you're able to clarify, ask questions, or even one thing that I used to get in trouble for a lot, and I'm sure you might know the experience. If you say something and in the moment it's a little harsh, or maybe it comes off the wrong way, and now the person can only focus on what you said, and any point you were trying to make is eclipsed by what you said in that moment, and the rest of the conversation or the argument is about how you said something. Where I've learned the situational awareness of in the moment of stopping and like, hold on, do I need to clarify something before we move any further? Right. So before that phrase or whatever was said gets to simmer and then bake into them so that they can focus on it for the next 5 minutes, 20 minutes, however long the conversation goes, I get to stop and address it right away and say, hold on. Before you commit that to memory, do we need to clarify what was said before we move forward? And that took me slowing down, being in the moment, and hearing the argument more for, okay, what is the root cause for here? What are we trying to solve? Not just, I'm guilty of it too, turning my temperature up and just like, shut up, and going for
Yeah,
that because it does
yeah. I mean,
happen.
I know the trigger word in my relationship is relax.
Uh,
Like if I that it's like I'll hit a point where I'm like, babe, just relax. And that word, she's like, don't tell me to relax. And they're like, oh, okay, hang
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Like if I use the word relax, it's because I got triggered, and for some reason that's like I some it worked somehow in the past at some point, but it's not working now, and it hasn't worked in a long time. But I keep wanting to use that word. It's like, okay, if I master that inner game, okay, relax is off the table. I'm gonna say something else.
Mastering the inner game, and obviously when it comes to committed to memory, what we commit to memory, we started with the memory being kept in the body, a lot of the habits and actions that we take. This with the neuroscience of sustainable strategy, right? Making decisions. As we come to a close, my one question is, and I know a lot of folks, entrepreneurs listening to this might struggle with how much information you actually need to make a decision on the outcome. I want to end with that and see your thoughts on. I mean, how much data do you look for before you actually are like, all right, I'm ready to make a decision on something?
I think that's very dependent on the individual and the personality. Some people fall into a category of fact finders, and they need to feel like they've got like 80% of the information in order to make a good decision and it feel good in their nervous system. And there's other people who are more intuitive. I fall in that category, which I need about 20% of the information any more than 20% of the information and I start feeling bogged down. And so it's very individualized. Are you a fact finder? Are you an intuitive? Um, and I think that those things are also trainable. Over the years, I've learned to find a few more facts and organize those facts in a way that allows me to make a more informed decision. And I've seen people who are fact finders loosen up the grip a little bit and tune into their body and go, well, where's my feeling taking me without needing to get too much. So I think it's trainable. I don't think that one way is better than the other, but I think that it's going to be depending on where you're at, whether you're a fact finder or an intuitive.
Yeah, I find myself more on the fact finder side where I'm like, give me the data, give me the data. I'm leaning more on the intuitive side.
The fact finder will go to make a substantial purchase. Maybe they're buying a car or they're signing up for a coaching program that costs several $1,000s. The fact finder is going to read every single word on the page. They're going to watch the video all the way through. They're going to email a question before they sign up, whatever. The more intuitive person is going to look for bullet points on the page. They're going to watch some of the video. They'll see that there's a lot of testimonials, but maybe not that many, or whatever. They're looking at how many testimonials there are based versus what's the content of them. So like in my emails, send me some bullet points, please, because I just want the high level. And so that's one way to find out: am I a fact finder or am I an intuitive? Is how much before you make a purchase, how much of the content that's available do you consume?
What would you say to the argument of one being laziness? Because I would say I think I was more of a intuitive, and because I was like, I just want the bullet points, I just want to know the meat of the thing, not necessarily going into detail of everything, right? And I guess somewhere along the lines, I got the download, an influence from someone else, like, oh, it's kind of laziness. Just do your research.
Could be for some people. Some people make poorer decisions with the more information they have. They actually make a better decision.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, yeah, it's so individualized. To try to generalize, like, is it laziness or is it this? Might be a little bit of laziness, but they also might just be really intuitive and making decisions. So there's so many factors too. I mean, we were talking to Marks last week and talking about, do you see the pass behind you or is it to left to right? It's like, maybe like someone who sees left to right is going to make a better, there's other factors other than intuition that are causing them to make better decisions or not. Maybe I'm more likely to repeat a mistake because of how I remember things versus how much information I gathered this time.
Yeah, kind of just looking at the results and hey, if you're doing all right, I would say there's nothing wrong with the decisions you're making if you're liking your life so far and you're doing okay.
Yeah, I'm always looking to improve though.
Oh yeah. Always get better, but at the end of the day, I like to be the bird on the branch. My confidence is not in the branch's ability to hold my weight. It's in the ability of my wings to fly if that branch were to break. So regardless of the decision, we're going to keep flying, baby.
I love that. That is a great analogy. Love it.
Hey, I think we'll end the podcast right there. That's Mike. I'm Ted. Thanks for checking out the Full Stack Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.